A young purple-haired girl named Lady Charlotte recalls being called a prodigy as a child, while a glowing butterfly rests on her finger. Charlotte Luna Myers, daughter of the Viscount, smiles brightly and reaches out, joyfully announcing she's coming. Dressed neatly for her lesson, Charlotte curtsies and eagerly expresses her excitement for the day ahead. A kind-looking woman with her hair in a bun asks Charlotte if she has had a chance to read the magic book she was given. Charlotte hesitates for a moment, looking at the book on the table before answering her teacher's question. She confidently reveals that she has already memorized the entire book and wishes to demonstrate her practical skills instead. With a flick of her finger, Charlotte unleashes a powerful spell, summoning swirling blue water and glowing white butterflies from a purple magic circle. Engulfed in a brilliant magical aura, Charlotte focuses intently, shaping a complex spell with her hands. An unseen person is left speechless, questioning in disbelief how a child could possibly wield such incredible magic. The teacher stares in awe at the magical display, realizing with certainty that the purple-haired girl is an undeniable genius. The gossip mill starts to churn as onlookers whisper that Lady Charlotte is exceptionally talented, even more so than her sister, Lady Scarlet. Charlotte's older sister, Scarlet Rosa Myers, is introduced, biting her thumb in frustration as she overhears the praise. Stomp! Scarlet's red shoe hits the ground as she angrily calls out her sister's name. Standing over Charlotte on a garden bench, Scarlet coldly accuses her of getting ahead of herself lately. Charlotte looks up with wide, innocent eyes, completely baffled by her sister's sudden and hostile accusation. Scarlet explodes in a jealous rage, furious that everyone is calling Charlotte a genius and considers her more capable. With a sharp snap, Scarlet dramatically opens her fan, her anger palpable. Leaning in threateningly, Scarlet coldly informs Charlotte that a younger sister's only purpose is to elevate her older sister. She turns away haughtily, declaring that it's completely unacceptable for a younger sibling to outshine their elder. Scarlet firmly plants her feet, reiterating that her sister being more talented is absolutely unacceptable. With a fierce glare amidst a background of roses, Scarlet commands Charlotte to become her supporting role. Charlotte thinks her sister's demand is ridiculous, but internally acknowledges that refusing will only provoke a furious tantrum. She closes her eyes, realizing that arguing with her sister is a hassle that will only escalate into a serious fight. After a final look at her pouting sister, Charlotte concludes that she only has one real choice in this matter. With a quiet, defeated sigh, Charlotte resigns herself to the unpleasant situation. Against a backdrop of gentle foliage, she quietly agrees, promising to do as her sister wishes. Looking up with grim determination, Charlotte formally vows to devote her life to being her dear sister's supporting role. Yawn. Now forced to sit through dull lessons she's already mastered, Charlotte deliberately adjusts her test scores to appear average, even worrying a 78 might be too high. Her plan works as adults lose interest, and her sister smirks happily, but it creates a new problem. People now see her as unremarkable compared to her brilliant sibling. The cruel whispers continue, as faceless onlookers remark on how unimpressive the younger sister is compared to the elder. Charlotte closes her eyes and tries to convince herself that this public humiliation is a small price to pay for peace at home. As the scene focuses on a butterfly clip in her hair, her true, simple wish is revealed. Her long purple hair flows as she dreams of her future. Her greatest desire is simply to marry an honest, kind gentleman and settle down in a grand, peaceful estate. Looking out a bright window, she imagines her ideal future, a quiet, peaceful life. That peaceful destiny was what she believed awaited her. But her reality is different. At the academy, she sits alone while other students point and identify her only as Lady Scarlet's sister. She is shocked to overhear outrageous rumors painting her as a spoiled child who refuses to study and only got into the academy through connections. Whisper, whisper. The gossip continues right behind her, and she's mortified that she can hear every single word. A male student with gray hair turns as if to speak to her, but seems to hesitate. The moment passes as he and others quickly turn away, pointedly ignoring her and leaving Charlotte to scream internally from frustration and loneliness. She slumps at her desk, feeling the crushing weight of her complete social isolation. Thinking hard, she finds it suspicious for rumors about a newly enrolled student to have spread so widely. She realizes the speed at which the gossip has circulated through the school is unnatural and far too quick. Connecting the dots, she recalls that this gossip was already making the rounds among the upperclassmen. The rumor then systematically trickled down from the older students to the first years via their younger siblings. Staring out the window, Charlotte puts the pieces of the puzzle together in her mind. Alone in a vast, empty room, she questions who could have orchestrated such a rumor campaign and what their motive could be. She asks herself the final, critical question: who stands to gain the most from tarnishing her reputation? A subtle, knowing smile forms on her lips as the answer becomes chillingly clear. Grip, with their hands clasped tightly, Charlotte's expression hardens with cold realization. The answer to her question is simple: Lady Scarlet. Elsewhere, two students gossip about the younger sister, saying she isn't very talented. As they call her spoiled, Scarlet feigns concern for her sister's ability to adapt to academy life. The girls praise Scarlet for being a caring sister despite her busy schedule with the committee. Scarlet smiles sweetly, claiming that a younger sister is always dear to her elder sibling, no matter what. She lets out a soft, pleased laugh, her facade perfectly in place. On the day of the entrance ceremony at Flegel Academy, Charlotte internally panics, realizing she's in trouble. Seeing the assembly notice, she panics even more. Seeing the time is 10 a.m. She checks her pocket watch, confirming she only has 5 minutes left until the assembly. Inside her head, Charlotte is screaming, lamenting that being late would be a lifelong disgrace and frustrated that noble decorum forbids her from running. In reality, however, she maintains perfect noble dignity, walking with forced calmness, despite her inner turmoil. The story flashes back to earlier that morning in her lavish room. Putting on her slippers, she steels herself for another day of playing her dear sister's supporting role. Sigh. With a big stretch, Charlotte gets ready to start her day. A group of cheerful maids greets her with a bright, "Good morning, Lady Charlotte." Her maids fuss over her, one promising perfect makeup for the entrance ceremony, while another encourages her to find a good husband, to which Charlotte agrees. With a confident wink, the maid gives a thumbs up, and Charlotte acknowledges her with an understood. Now in her crisp academy uniform, Charlotte stares at her reflection in the mirror. She offers a radiant smile, thanking all of her maids for their help. As the emotional maids bid her farewell, Charlotte dismisses their drama and finds the new student waiting area. She enters a room filled with the indistinct figures of her new classmates. The quiet murmur of the crowd fills the hall as students wait for the ceremony to begin. Whew! Charlotte breathes a sigh of relief, thinking she made it just in time. A kind-looking, brown-haired boy approaches with a flower, saying he was worried she'd run into trouble. Flustered by the attention, Charlotte apologizes for making him worry. She explains she had trouble getting ready, flashing back to her maids panicking outside her door because she wouldn't wake up. Her eyes are drawn to the intricate dragon-shaped badge pinned to his uniform. She remembers Scarlet telling her over tea that the Academy's student officers are admired by everyone. Scarlet had explained that the dragon badge is a special motif for influential student officers, causing Charlotte to sigh at the thought of her sister's status. Her sister proudly revealed she was chosen as the Student Council Vice President, which explains why she was so keen on wearing her uniform even at home. In a flash of panic, Charlotte realizes she's talking to Isaac Kenneth Bryant, the Duke's son and the Student Council treasurer. She stares in shock at Isaac, who seems just as surprised by her reaction. Isaac smiles, commenting that she recognized him quickly as he prepares to pin the flower on her. As he gently attaches the flower, she explains that her sister speaks of him often. Surprised, he asks, "Your sister?" before finishing with a satisfied smile. A look of sudden understanding crosses his face as he connects the dots. Isaac notes that she resembles Scarlet, adding that he's also heard a lot about her, which catches Charlotte completely off guard. From her of all people? Charlotte reels, anxiously wondering what lies Scarlet has been spreading about her. Isaac offers a word of encouragement to hang in there before turning to the group, noting one person is still missing. His words and strange expression don't comfort her. Instead, they leave her feeling deeply unsettled. Just then, a polished shoe steps into view as a new arrival apologizes for their lateness. Charlotte looks up, her eyes widening in absolute awe at the person who just walked in. She is captivated by an unbelievably beautiful young man with dark hair and striking blue eyes. The newcomer has a calm, almost ethereal presence, closing his eyes for a brief moment. He's so stunning that Charlotte thinks he seems to be from an entirely different dimension. The beautiful student, whom Isaac calls Soleil, dismisses the lateness as a simple accident. Charlotte's mind races, recalling that the Soleil Kingdom is a nation renowned for its military prowess. She remembers a map showing the Soleil Kingdom's tense alliance with the Draconia Empire, a nation known for waging wars. Charlotte recalls that every member of the Soleil royal family is trained in martial arts. She remembers that the third prince, Soleil, is considered a genius who already achieved the rank of swordmaster. A voice instructs both her and the prince to line up as the time on a grandfather clock shows the ceremony is about to begin. As large doors swing open, an announcer welcomes the first-year students to the entrance ceremony. Charlotte and the dark-haired prince, Soleil, walk side by side into the grand hall. Inside the magnificent Flugel Academy Hall, the entrance ceremony is officially declared to have begun. Standing in line with the other new students, Charlotte waits for the ceremony to proceed. Students admire the handsome Soleil, making Charlotte feel insignificant beside him as she looks upon the prestigious Flugel Academy of the Draconia Empire. A social hierarchy chart shows Charlotte's family as viscounts and Scarlett's as marquises, highlighting the relaxed class distinctions at the academy. As she stands next to the prince, Charlotte realizes their proximity is unusual, just as the student council president Leonardo Aries Draconia is introduced. Kya! A handsome, blonde-haired young man with a dragon badge, Leonardo, smiles warmly and begins his congratulatory speech to the new students. While other students swoon over him, Charlotte dryly notes his popularity as he offers words of comfort to the incoming class. With a charming smile, Leonardo assures the students that the council exists to support them and they should feel free to rely on its members. Watching another student silently squeal with excitement, Charlotte thinks to herself that this must be what true charisma looks like. She flashes back to her sister Scarlett, gushing about the student council president, His Highness Leo, praising him as a top genius who treats everyone equally. Scarlett's voiceover continues, describing Leonardo as both kind and gentle. Remembering Scarlett also mentioned he could be strict, Charlotte reflects on her sister's description of him. The announcer then introduces the vice president, Scarlett Rosa Myers, and Charlotte watches her sister step forward. Charlotte acknowledges that, personal feelings aside, Scarlett is an outstanding student who some say surpasses even the prince in magic studies. Realizing almost no one opposed her sister's unprecedented appointment to the council, Charlotte listens as Scarlett begins to congratulate the new students. In her speech, Scarlett praises the students for their hard work and expresses her excitement to see what they will accomplish. As Scarlett speaks of building friendships, Charlotte sits stone-faced, the word friendship feeling hollow to her. She recalls her lazy habit of avoiding social gatherings, such as when she declined to join her sister at a salon. Shaking her head, Charlotte dismisses her own thoughts, feeling that her situation isn't so simple. An image of a romance novel cover appears, symbolizing her girlish dreams. She daydreams about a normal school life, casually hanging out with friends and enjoying her youth. She closes her eyes, wishing for that simple life while also hoping to find a potential fiancé. Her dream shatters as she realizes her current situation is terrible, and with whispers surrounding her, she knows she has to find her sister. The whispers intensify as two girls point at her, identifying her only as Lady Scarlett's younger sister. She's horrified to overhear students call her an unfortunate girl who cheated on her entrance exam, forcing her to cover her ears. Just then, Scarlett appears from a doorway with a bright smile, calling out to her. Scarlett feigns surprise, her expression wide and innocent. Grabbing her sister's arm, Charlotte declares that they need to talk. Scarlett maintains her innocent facade, asking what her sister wants to discuss. Charlotte confronts her directly, asking if she has been spreading rumors about her. She continues her accusation, asking if Scarlett told people that she is an unbearable, spoiled child. Finally, she asks if Scarlett also called her an incompetent fool, leaving her sister momentarily stunned. Scarlett casually admits she did, in fact, spread those rumors because people found them entertaining. Aghast at the confession, Charlotte demands that her sister correct the rumors immediately. Standing on a balcony, Charlotte passionately denies the rumors, insisting she is neither incompetent nor a spoiled brat. She worries that if these rumors persist among the high-ranking nobles, she will be completely isolated with no one to associate with. A wave of sadness washes over her as she contemplates the social ruin her sister has caused. Frustrated, she explains that her classmates are already avoiding her because of the malicious gossip. With renewed urgency, she clenches her fist and insists that Scarlett must fix the rumors right away. In a final, desperate plea, Charlotte screams for her sister to give her back the enjoyable school life she's been robbed of. Charlotte stands her ground on the balcony, repeating her demand for Scarlet to fix the rumors. Scarlet looks down, contemplating her sister's demand to undo the damage she's caused. With a smug smile, Scarlet points out how troublesome it would be if the student council vice president was caught spreading false rumors. Stepping closer, she reminds Charlotte of her place, stating coldly that she is meant to be her supporter. Scarlet looks down at her with a condescending smile, asking if she can't endure a little hardship for her sake. Leaning close to a shocked Charlotte, Scarlet coldly tells her to bear with the hardship for her sake. With a cheerful smile, Scarlet announces that Prince Leo is waiting and quickly departs, ignoring Charlotte's desperate cry of, "Sister!" Left completely alone on the balcony, Charlotte stands speechless and devastated. Later, surrounded by her classmates, Charlotte sighs in defeat, realizing it's impossible to convince her sister. Lost in thought, she sadly wonders if she is simply meant to endure this mistreatment forever. An instructor asks if everyone has found a partner for the dance, as other students stand in pairs. Standing alone, Charlotte realizes with a pang of sadness that everyone is treating her as an untouchable outcast. She reflects that back at her home, she was never alone and thus never noticed how lonely she could be. A voice suddenly calls out, "Lady Charlotte," catching her completely by surprise. Her eyes widen in shock as the reflection of the dark-haired Prince Soleil appears in her pupil. Looking at her with a gentle expression, Soleil asks if she would care to dance with him. Gasp! Stunned by the unexpected offer, Charlotte blurts out, "Why me?" Disbelieving her eyes, she rubs them, wondering if she's so desperate for company that she's starting to hallucinate. The judgmental stares of her classmates, whispering about His Highness wanting to dance with her, confirm that this is all too real. Soleil looks at her intently, his sparkling blue eyes waiting for an answer. Flustered, Charlotte tries to decline, suggesting that he must have more suitable partners available. He leans in close, stunning her by declaring that she is the only one who matches him. Taking her hand, he gives her an ultimatum, either firmly refuse or they will start dancing. Before she can protest, he swiftly pulls her into a dance embrace, her eyes wide with shock. As they begin to move, she gazes up at him, a look of wonder on her face. Panicking, she tries to focus on his movements, worried she's about to trip and embarrass herself. Soleil looks down at her with a calm, knowing expression as he leads her through the dance. Onlookers comment that while Prince Grayson is amazing, Charlotte is also a decent dancer, but another girl scoffs that it's only because his lead is flawless. Charlotte struggles with the fast-paced steps, thinking that no unskilled person could possibly keep up. As they dance, Soleil looks at her seriously and asks why she is hiding her true ability. Her hand trembles in his as she nervously asks what he could possibly be talking about. He tightens his grip slightly, reminding her how she always glanced around at others in class when called upon. In a flashback, a teacher calls on Lady Charlotte, and she meekly answers. Another student in the flashback breathes a sigh of relief, glad she wasn't picked for the tough question. Charlotte decides she should probably get the answer wrong on purpose to avoid standing out. She gives a hesitant, incorrect answer and feels a wave of relief when the teacher simply notes the question was difficult. However, another student confidently provides the correct answer, as Soleil watches thoughtfully from his seat. Back in the present, Charlotte looks away, unable to meet his gaze. She quietly wonders if his observation is just her imagination running wild. Soleil shatters her doubt, stating that very few people can keep up with his lead so perfectly. He tells her she's more skilled than anyone there, and asks if it isn't frustrating that rumors cause people to look down on her. Looking directly into her eyes, he presses further, asking why she is so determined to pretend to be ordinary. Charlotte thinks to herself that explaining her situation with her sister won't solve anything. She resigns herself to the fact that to maintain peace with Scarlet, hiding her true self is the only way. The needle lifts from a record player, signaling the end of the music and the dance. With a polite bow, Charlotte thanks Soleil for the dance. She smiles brightly, cherishing the moment as a wonderful memory. As she walks away, Soleil remains behind, watching her go. He observes her with a serious, pensive expression. The story is marked to be continued. In a new scene, Charlotte covers her face with her hand and lets out an exhausted sigh. Sitting alone on a bench, she feels absolutely hopeless, reflecting on how she tried everything to dispel the rumors. To disprove the incompetent rumor, she deliberately scored average grades on her tests. To disprove the spoiled rumor, she actively volunteered to help the teachers with tasks. Her efforts were in vain, as she still overhears girls gossiping that she must be cheating and just faking her sweet personality, leaving her utterly defeated. Watching two other girls laughing together, Charlotte sits alone on a nearby bench, lost in thought. With a sad expression, she admits to herself that she envies them. As she imagines friends walking and chatting happily, she wishes she could experience that simple joy too. Startled, she notices one of the girls has accidentally dropped her handkerchief. Picking it up, Charlotte approaches the girls to return it. The girls turn around in surprise, one of them calling out to get the other's attention. They instantly recognize her, whispering in shock that she's the one from those rumors. Looking nervous, one of the girls timidly asks Charlotte if she needs something. Charlotte offers the handkerchief with a kind smile, as one of the girls realizes she must have dropped it from her pocket. The girl nervously takes the handkerchief back, offering a quiet thank you. Clutching the handkerchief, the girls quickly make their exit, telling each other to hurry. Charlotte watches them flee, thinking to herself about their reaction. She resigns herself to the situation, figuring it's understandable that no one wants to associate with a rumored cheater. She's startled to find Prince Grayson standing nearby, watching her. Clutching her chest, she fights back tears, admitting to herself she almost cried. Grayson looks on with a neutral expression, simply acknowledging her pain. As a single tear falls to the ground, she thinks of the cold indifference she faces. She breaks down, lamenting that she'll spend the next 3 years alone, without friends or a suitor, as everyone avoids her. She flashes back to Grayson, the only person who spoke to her, in the intense moments they shared. Determined, she rejects her miserable fate, thinking, no. With tears in her eyes, she looks up, refusing to give in to despair. Remembering Grayson asking if she was frustrated, she screams in her mind that of course she is. Taking a breath, she admits that no one would listen even if she tried to deny the rumors. She grimly acknowledges that she and her sister Scarlet hold completely different levels of influence. Looking toward a bright, sunlit sky, she reflects on her current path. With a single tear still on her cheek, she stares forward with newfound determination. She takes a powerful step forward, splashing through a puddle with resolve. Finding him again, she nervously calls out to Prince Grayson. He turns with a cold expression, asking what she wants. Though his voice is cold, she steels her nerves, knowing she has to say what's on her mind. She explains that she never wanted to go against her sister and gave in because it seemed like too much trouble. She finishes her confession, stating that's why she obeyed her sister and played the part of an ordinary Viscount's daughter. Grayson closes his eyes with a faint, knowing smile, thinking her reasoning is ridiculous. Seeing his reaction, Charlotte feels a wave of relief and smiles warmly. With a newfound sense of purpose, she proudly declares that she has decided to stop being her sister's shadow. Looking up at the sky, she vows that from now on, she will live for herself. Grayson listens to her declaration and simply says, I see. He then casually points out on a map that she's currently in the boys' dormitory. Realizing her mistake, a mortified Charlotte makes a mad dash for the exit. Now labeled an intruder, she panics, realizing that if she's seen here, a new and scandalous but true rumor will spread. A faint, amused smile plays on Grayson's lips as he watches her flee. The scene shifts to the freshman welcome party, where Charlotte stands in a purple gown, noting that it's almost time to start. Feeling awkward and alone, she figures she can just eat and drink to pass the time. She stares up at the massive ballroom doors, wondering if they've always seemed so intimidating. In a cute chibi form, she pouts with her arms crossed, overwhelmed by nervousness. Shaking off her hesitation, she decides there's no use complaining and reaches for the door. She freezes, her hand hovering over the handle as she recognizes a familiar voice from inside. Her eyes widen in surprise as she realizes it's His Highness, Grayson, who stands resplendent in his formal attire. Peeking from behind the door, she wonders what he could possibly want. She worries that His Highness wants to talk about the time she accidentally wandered into the boys' dorm. To her utter shock, Grayson suddenly bows before her. He looks up at her, his eyes sparkling with a serious question. Completely stunned, Charlotte covers her mouth, unable to process what's happening. Her mind races as she wonders if he's actually asking her to be his partner. She begins to refuse, thinking that partnering with him would draw far too much attention. But then she remembers her vow not to run away from challenges anymore. With renewed determination, she concludes that this must be a test from the prince. She reaches out her hand and quietly agrees with a simple yes. Taking his hand, she formally accepts, telling him she would be honored. Eek. He gently brings her hand to his lips for a princely kiss. Looking up at her with a gentle smile, he expresses his gratitude. He carefully leads her by the hand toward the ballroom doors as she thanks him. As they enter the grand ballroom, she lets out a gasp of awe. She marvels at the extravagant party, noting it's far grander than anything a lower noble could host. As they walk in together, they immediately become the subject of hushed whispers. Everyone's attention shifts to the stage where the Duke's daughter, Amelia Candace Dursley, gives the opening toast. An onlooker remarks that since Amelia is giving the toast, she must have ranked first in the entrance exam. Charlotte notes that Amelia is one of the few students who doesn't avoid her, but suspects she's just trying to verify the rumors. Amelia raises her glass, wishing everyone a wonderful evening. 3 wine glasses clink together as the guests shout, "Cheers!" Grayson looks at his glass in disappointment, realizing he's been served grape juice instead of alcohol. Noticing his displeasure, Charlotte wonders if he's an alcohol enthusiast. She tries to change the subject by pointing out the delicious roast beef, to which he simply responds, "Meat." An orchestra conductor raises his baton, signaling the start of the dance music. As he takes a bite of food, Grayson notes that it's time for the first dance, making Charlotte nervous. A voice announces that Amelia Candace Dursley should step forward to the center. Amelia smiles gracefully as she begins to dance with her partner. Charlotte admires the top student's elegant dancing, just as an announcer calls Grayson to the center, catching her by surprise. Grayson informs a stunned Charlotte that since he ranked third, she is his designated partner and must dance well, a fact no one bothered to tell her. Accepting her fate, she steels herself and gets into position for the dance. With a confident smile, she begins to dance with him. 2 onlookers comment that Lady Charlotte is dancing well, though one scoffs that it's only because the prince is a flawless lead. The second girl hesitates, adding a tentative "but." As the couple twirls gracefully across the floor, the girl finishes her thought, admitting their dance looks wonderful. A brown-haired girl in the crowd watches them with a blush, thinking they look beautiful. Grayson and Charlotte gaze deeply into each other's eyes as they dance. The crowd watches in awe, 2 faceless girls clapping with delighted smiles. Grayson watches Charlotte's surprised expression with a thoughtful look. He notes that her reaction to the cheers makes her seem just like any other girl. He finds it hard to believe this is the same girl who followed his lead so perfectly, causing Charlotte to blush at the praise. The narrator reflects that in that moment, Lady Charlotte looked truly beautiful. Charlotte looks up, a silent question in her eyes. The magical night spent being escorted by the Prince of the Soleil Kingdom officially comes to an end. Back in the classroom, Charlotte sits alone, acknowledging she's still a loner but feeling that something has changed. Surrounded by a fiery aura of determination, she declares that from now on, she's going all out and won't hold back. A woman with brown hair and a witch's hat introduces herself as Bianca Weiss-Bryant, their magic studies instructor. With a warm smile, she tells the class she looks forward to teaching them for the next year. Charlotte thinks the instructor looks familiar and tries to place the name Bryant. Bianca reveals that the student council treasurer is her younger brother, but she warns the hopeful students that she won't be introducing them. Charlotte listens quietly as her instructor, Bianca, begins the first magic lesson by outlining the 4 basic types of magic. The first type of magic, sorcery, is illustrated with an intricate glowing magic circle. The lecture continues, describing, quote, magic, using incantations and summoning, which borrows power from spirits. Bianca explains the final type, prayer magic, is unusable by anyone in the country, so she will only be teaching the other 3. Holding up 3 fingers, Bianca confirms she will be covering the 3 remaining types of magic. She directs the class to a light attribute magic circle in their books, noting that elemental affinity is rarely an issue in sorcery. Bianca warns that even this basic spell to create illuminating particles has a risk of failure, so they must remain focused. She explains that magic circles are drawn with fine threads of mana from one's fingertips, as 2 students are shown struggling with the task. Charlotte sighs internally, admitting she rarely uses sorcery because it requires too much effort. Deciding she has no choice, she effortlessly channels purple mana, and a complex magic circle instantly forms beneath her hand. 2 nearby students gasp in shock, realizing her magic circle is already complete, having formed too fast for them to even see it drawn. Wah! A blinding light erupts from her spell, forcing the other students to shield their eyes in pain. Countless glowing butterfly-shaped particles of light elegantly fill the classroom, originating from Charlotte's spell. A male student watches in awe, questioning how Lady Charlotte could possibly be the failure everyone rumored her to be. He watches the magical display, convinced that no one with such incredible skill could ever be a failure. As a glowing butterfly lands on her finger, Charlotte smiles, pleased with her work, while Bianca watches in stunned admiration, noting the incredible amount and shape of the particles are beyond anything she's ever seen. The impressed instructor approaches Charlotte's desk and asks for her name. Charlotte looks up and confidently introduces herself as Charlotte Luna Myers. Bianca reflects that Charlotte's abilities are far beyond the norm as Prince Grayson watches from his seat with an intrigued smile. The scene shifts to another class, where Charlotte's homeroom teacher, Cyrus L. Russell, cheerfully announces a surprise quiz. The students are bewildered, asking what they could possibly be tested on in their very first herbal studies class. With an unamused expression, Charlotte thinks to herself that this is completely absurd. Cyrus turns his back to the class and begins writing the quiz questions on the board. A narration panel reveals he is a renowned researcher and the genius inventor of a revolutionary, albeit experimental, healing potion. Charlotte recalls how Cyrus is an eccentric teacher who abandoned their first homeroom, told them to just read a handout, and forgets names almost instantly. He immediately proves her point by asking for Amelia's name, calling her Eleanor, and getting corrected twice. Watching him, Charlotte concludes with deadpan certainty that he should not be a homeroom teacher. Reminding herself of her promise to take everything seriously, Charlotte focuses and determinedly begins the quiz. After the difficult quiz, the students complain that they were completely lost and that it was impossible for anyone to get it right. Dawn! The teacher slams his hand on the desk, announcing that, surprisingly, one student achieved a perfect score. Bam! He calls for the perfect scorer to stand, and Charlotte rises from her desk, once again introducing herself as Charlotte Luna Myers. Cyrus beams with a wide, delighted smile upon hearing her name. He holds up a small potted sprout and asks her to identify it. Squinting, Charlotte recognizes the pattern and identifies it as flame spirit grass. She elaborates that the plant requires magical energy and is lethally poisonous, causing anyone who consumes it to spontaneously combust. Giggling with glee, Cyrus confirms she is perfectly correct and hugs the deadly plant, excited to research it. The entire class stares in horror, realizing their teacher brought a deadly, combustible plant into the classroom. Charlotte leaps to her feet, shouting that bringing such a dangerous item to class is reckless. Cyrus stares at Charlotte intently, repeating her full name with newfound interest. With a serious expression, he promises that he will remember her name as the scene fades. Later, as Charlotte sits alone, a female student wonders aloud if she is actually insanely intelligent. A male student scoffs, refusing to believe it and insisting there must be another explanation. Phew. Letting out a sigh of relief, Charlotte closes her book after a long day of classes. Suddenly, a hand is placed on her desk, and a voice calls her name. She looks up, stunned, to see Prince Grayson standing beside her, asking if she'd like to have lunch with him. Staring up at his unreadable expression, Charlotte tries to figure out what he's thinking. Proclaiming she isn't easily swayed by food, Charlotte is about to refuse until Grayson offers to include dessert, at which point she excitedly accepts. Other students watch in disbelief as Charlotte happily agrees, shocked at how easily she was won over. As she daydreams about the Academy's famously delicious desserts, she internally justifies her quick acceptance. She reasons that, since she couldn't eat at the party and the cafeteria is expensive, she has to take advantage of his offer. The scene transitions to the grand and bustling school cafeteria, filled with students enjoying their lunch. A beautiful spread of sandwiches, various cakes, and a cup of tea is laid out on the table for their lunch. Charlotte's eyes sparkle with pure delight as she holds up a perfect slice of strawberry shortcake. With puffed cheeks and a look of absolute bliss, she savors a bite of her cake. Watching her, Grayson calmly observes that she certainly seems to be enjoying her meal. Startled by his voice, Charlotte looks up with a gasp of surprise. She becomes flustered, thinking she let her unladylike expression slip while she was eating. Grayson looks genuinely confused, tilting his head and asking why she is apologizing. Her eyes widen as she internally notes that she was served a pretty decent portion. Blushing and looking away, she nervously begins to explain herself. She tells Grayson that while the portion may seem small to him, it is more than enough for her, as the list details his own massive meal befitting a swordmaster. Smiling brightly, She confirms that this is plenty for her and insists she can't eat anymore. Grayson notes her small appetite as he eats, while Charlotte internally fumes that he just eats way too much. After her drink is finished, leaving only a glass of ice, she has a sudden realization. As Grayson daintily wipes his mouth, she concludes this must have been the real reason he invited her to lunch. Sitting together on a bench, she admits that while being the center of attention is refreshing, she's still not used to it. She smiles, confessing that seeing people's perceptions of her slowly change makes her a little happy. With his eyes closed, Grayson listens quietly and simply acknowledges her feelings. He then brings up her magic from class, mentioning how shocked the professor seemed to be. Using diagrams, Charlotte explains that her magical energy has an exceptionally high mana concentration, which is likely what surprised her instructor. Grayson praises her incredible skill and speed at constructing magic circles, but she admits she rarely uses it because it's a hassle. His interest piqued, he asks what kind of magic she usually uses, guessing word or summoning magic. After a moment of thought, Charlotte smiles and says she supposes she uses word magic. Grayson accepts her answer as Charlotte internally admits it's not a lie, but feels guilty for keeping her true abilities a secret. Ho ho! She covers her mouth and lets out a small, refined laugh. A nearby clock indicates it's time to go, as a voice suggests they should head back to class soon. Walking through a grand hall, Grayson informs her the afternoon session is for committee assignments and asks if she has a preference. After some thought, Charlotte suggests the library committee, thinking it sounds like fun. She then turns to ask Grayson about his choice for a committee. To her complete shock, he states he's aiming for the disciplinary committee as a shining shield emblem appears. A narration explains the disciplinary committee is the only group allowed to use weapons and offensive magic, making it inherently dangerous. The narration continues, describing the committee as violent and willing to use physical force, leaving Charlotte to wonder why Grayson would ever want to join. She sighs in resignation, deciding it doesn't matter as long as she herself doesn't end up on that committee. The assignments are finalized, and a board reveals that both Grayson Lee Soleil and Charlotte Luna Myers have been assigned to the disciplinary committee. Stunned and frustrated, Charlotte squeezes a red stamp in her hand until it nearly breaks. Emilia dismisses the class for their first committee meetings, leaving Charlotte to stand in place and let out a long, agonized groan. As she tries to sneak away, Grayson calls out from behind her, asking where she thinks she is going. He points her in the right direction, teasingly asking if she's trying to get lost. She reluctantly follows, telling herself to stop sulking. Grayson pushes open the heavy doors to the disciplinary committee room. A blinding streak of golden energy erupts from the room, catching both of them by surprise. Reacting instantly, Grayson shouts, "Barrier!" and throws up a protective shield to block the blast. What? Charlotte stares in wide-eyed shock from behind the magical shield. What the? The energy blast continues, a swirling vortex of multicolored light. The chaos subsides, leaving a small pink ball bouncing on the floor as the two try to understand what just happened. Hiya! An unseen attacker yells as a wooden sword swings down toward Grayson's head. With calm precision, Grayson catches the wooden sword, with his bare hands just inches from his face. Gah! The red-haired attacker cries out in pain and shock as Grayson easily disarms him. The boy collapses onto the floor, utterly defeated. Grayson, now holding the sword, coolly criticizes the fallen boy's technique, telling him his swing was way too wide. A silver-haired girl holding a riding crop smiles brightly, praising the outcome as a good one. She commends Grayson for blocking her shot and dodging Gerard, as two other downtrodden first-years stand behind her. The red-haired boy, Gerard, holds his head in frustration, complaining that this isn't funny at all. Wincing in pain, Gerard shouts at the silver-haired girl, calling her chairwoman. The silver-haired girl smiles and introduces herself as Dina Holly Hayes, head of the disciplinary committee. Gerard cheerfully introduces himself as the vice chair, admitting he's just a commoner. A purple-haired girl announces that, since everyone is present, the meeting can begin. Gerard seriously explains that the committee's main duties are patrolling the school and overseeing events. The purple-haired girl reads a document and is shocked by the 2-hour patrol time. Looking up from his seat, Gerard smiles faintly. Gerard states that they must handle any problems they find, and any resulting tardiness will be overlooked. Gerard explains the rules. Give a warning first, minimize injuries, and maintain appearances with nobles. Dina tells him he's being too blunt. Dina presents a golden gun, explaining it's a signal flare for emergencies, as Charlotte hopes they never have to use it. Using her wind mentor magic, Dina gracefully sends the flare guns floating toward the new members. As a flare gun lands gently on her desk, Charlotte internally marvels at Dina's precise magical control. Dina holds up a small badge, acknowledging the risks of their job but promising she will always protect them. Gerard watches her with a warm, approving smile. Inspired by Dina's heartfelt promise, Charlotte listens intently as she is told to follow without worry. The next morning, Charlotte arrives at the school building and is surprised to see everyone is already there. Charlotte turns and gives Prince Grayson a cheerful good morning greeting. Holding his new sword, Grayson explains he got it approved yesterday. Charlotte privately notes how happy he seems. Charlotte jokes about fighting with magic instead of her fists, which she deems impossible, and Grayson calmly accepts her plan. Gerard gathers everyone's attention, telling them it's time to move to their assigned patrol areas. A narration explains Grayson and Charlotte are assigned to the botanical garden, a high-risk area not typically given to first years. Dina gives them a confident smile, assuring them that the two of them can handle it. Walking beside Grayson, Charlotte thinks that while she appreciates the trust, she's an amateur with no combat experience. An hour passes as a diagram shows Charlotte and Grayson patrolling in circles around the garden. Charlotte notes that so far, their patrol has been completely uneventful. As Grayson remarks on how peaceful it is, Charlotte calls out his name. Swoosh! Grayson instantly pulls Charlotte behind him and draws his sword to block a flying knife, telling her not to move. From a distance, a shadowy figure observes their black tie pins, identifying them as first years. A masked intruder appears, commending Grayson for his skill but giving them a final warning to surrender. Annoyed at being ignored, the intruder draws his own weapon, deciding they won't surrender peacefully. Grayson instructs Charlotte to cover him, and she confidently agrees. With a steely gaze, Grayson declares his intention to end the fight in just 1 minute. Clang! Their blades meet, and the intruder is shocked by the incredible weight behind Grayson's sword. Grayson powerfully shoves the intruder backward, throwing him off balance. The intruder clutches his bleeding arm, realizing he's been wounded and must retreat. As the intruder decides to flee, Charlotte steps forward, declaring she won't let him escape. Whoa! Charlotte casts Ice Wall, creating a massive barrier that blocks the intruder's escape, leaving him stunned. The defeated intruder realizes his intel was wrong. He was only supposed to steal the onray grass from some weak newbies. Charlotte recalls the onray grass is poisonous, and Grayson explains its rarity makes it valuable, before deciding to hand the intruder over. As they stand over their captured and bound foe, a sudden rustling sound comes from the nearby bushes. Eek! Hearing a noise, Grayson and Charlotte turn in surprise, wondering if more intruders have appeared. A disheveled and teary-eyed figure with green hair and glasses emerges from the foliage. Professor Cyrus stands before the botanical garden, calling out to Lady Charlotte. He greets them cheerfully while holding a small potted plant, leaving Charlotte to stare in shock at his soaking wet state. Charlotte points out his drenched clothes and asks him what happened. Cyrus proudly explains he protected the onray grass, and then asks if they were going for a shower, which Charlotte denies. Pointing toward a building, Cyrus says he was just getting fertilizer and is now returning to the greenhouse. Charlotte questions his plan to go in that outfit, but he dismisses her concern, saying it's just water that will dry. Puzzled by his strange logic, Charlotte questions if he's cold or acting appropriately, finally wondering if she's the weird one. Seeing Prince Grayson's troubled expression, Charlotte decides she can't just leave him like this. She gathers a swirl of glowing purple magic between her fingers. A vibrant magic circle erupts at Professor Cyrus's feet, catching the plant-holding man by surprise. Orbs of water are magically pulled from the back of his drenched coat. After successfully separating the water from his clothes, Charlotte summons a small flame to complete her spell. Whoa! Professor Cyrus stares in awe as another intricate purple magic circle materializes before him. A pleasant breeze swirls around him as he notes the use of wind magic, remarking how nice it feels. Now completely dry, Professor Cyrus happily thanks Charlotte, calling her magic truly impressive. He then asks if she can also create a magic circle for extinguishing fires, and she begins to agree. With a madly gleeful smile, Cyrus reveals his experiment, to test if eating onray grass causes spontaneous combustion. Horrified, Charlotte asks if he's going to eat it, but he clarifies he plans to feed it to bugs, not himself. She calmly informs the professor that even if he tries to use her magic circle, it won't activate for him. Cyrus cheerfully admits he hasn't memorized any magic formulas and was hoping to copy hers since he can't make them. Charlotte finds it unbelievable that a teacher lacks such basic knowledge, but accepts it as typical for Professor Cyrus. Smiling, she creates the fire extinguishing circle and tells him to copy it within the hour, as his hand touches the mana threads. As thanks, Professor Cyrus leans in extremely close to offer her some useful information, making her flinch. He whispers a warning, revealing that a proficiency test is being planned for her soon. With a subtle, confident smile, Charlotte takes in the news. She coolly states that it's not a problem and declares she will undoubtedly pass the test. Pleased with her confidence, Cyrus smiles and says, "That's the spirit." In a classroom, an instructor with a witch's hat begins a lesson on word spell magic. The instructor announces that the students will be participating in a defense-offense game. A diagram explains the one-on-one match. Players must attack or defend a target piece, switching roles after each round to win 2. Charlotte nervously anticipates the event. Realizing this is her first practical battle exercise, she turns to the match table to discover the identity of her opponent. The instructor directs the class to the match table as Charlotte understands she is being tested. Determined, she resolves to meet the professor's expectations. Charlotte turns to another girl, formally stating that she looks forward to their match. Her opponent is revealed to be Lady Amelia, who agrees with a smile. Using Win Mentor, the instructor sets up the match, explaining that Charlotte will be the defender for the first round. As the chess pieces land in place, the match is declared to begin. Amelia instantly casts a fireball, impressing Charlotte with her speed, but she prepares her own spell. The fiery projectile soars directly toward the white king piece on the table. With a magical flash, Charlotte confidently declares she's even faster, protecting the piece. Crack! Amelia's wind cutter strikes Charlotte's barrier, causing a small fracture to appear on the shield. Surprised, Charlotte notes with a bead of sweat that her barrier has been cracked. Amelia is equally shocked, stating that she had even reinforced her attack significantly. Charlotte quickly deduces Amelia's smart move, firing a second, more powerful fireball to overwhelm the initial barrier's defenses. Amelia mentally marvels at the strength of Charlotte's shield, created using only beginner-level magic. Conceding defeat, Amelia admits she cannot break the barrier and would lose even if they switched roles. The crowd murmurs in disbelief, shocked that Lady Amelia lost and questioning if Charlotte's victory is real. Amelia's supporters angrily accuse Charlotte of cheating and demand she admit her supposed crime. "Silence, you fools!" Amelia shouts, defending Charlotte as a talented person she herself recognizes. She fiercely declares that she will not tolerate any insults against Charlotte, silencing her stunned friends. Amelia turns and sincerely apologizes to Charlotte, explaining her friends only acted out of concern for her. Flustered, Charlotte waves her hands and insists it's fine and not to worry about it. Amelia kindly insists on making it up to her, offering her help whenever she might need it. Charlotte gratefully accepts as Grayson watches their exchange from the crowd. The next morning, 2 of Amelia's friends cheerfully greet Lady Charlotte. A short-haired girl in a military-style uniform rushes up, enthusiastically wishing her a good morning. Internally, Charlotte is overcome with emotion, realizing Amelia's friends are actually talking to her. She then asks what martial arts class entails, a question her new friends admit they don't have an answer to. Thump, thump, thump! A sudden, loud sound startles Charlotte, who looks around in alarm as a horse gallops toward them, panicking the other students. Seeing the out-of-control horse, she worries that someone is going to get hurt. Deciding to take action, Charlotte resolves to first give the charging horse a warning. As she prepares to cast a spell, one of her friends urgently calls out, telling Lady Charlotte to wait. Grayson calmly explains that the rider is Professor Nigel, the martial arts instructor, leaving Charlotte confused. Nay! With a dramatic leap, Professor Nigel jumps off the galloping horse, shocking Charlotte. The long-haired professor lands gracefully, affectionately petting his white horse and praising her as Queen. He turns to Charlotte and apologizes for mistaking her for an intruder. Professor Nigel then commends her, noting that she was only trying to protect her classmates, which is praiseworthy. He then smugly wonders how anyone could guess he's a martial arts teacher when he's so stunningly handsome. With a confident wink, he concludes it's no surprise she mistook him for someone else. Charlotte and the other girls think in unison that it was going so well until his narcissism kicked in. He formally introduces himself as their instructor, the head of House Carter, and the cousin of Professor Cyrus L. Russell. What? This final revelation sends a wave of collective shock through the students. Ha ha ha, Charlotte laughs. Finally understanding why his mannerisms felt so familiar, he's just like Professor Cyrus. Professor Nigel explains that the class offers two choices: horseback riding and swordsmanship. Charlotte considers her options, relieved they don't have to decide right away. Her friends voice their apprehension about swordsmanship, finding the idea of training with the men intimidating. Excited by the rare opportunity to interact with horses, Charlotte enthusiastically announces she's choosing horseback riding and moves to join the group. However, Grayson steps in, telling Lady Charlotte that she's with him, as he'll personally oversee her training. Huff huff. He reminds her how out of breath she was during their patrol rounds, and she gulps at the memory. Flustered and reluctant, Charlotte stammers, But... Internally, she whines that exercise is a hassle when they have magic, picturing her usual self leisurely reading with cake and tea. Realizing he's right about her poor physical condition and the exam rules, she relents and agrees to his guidance. He immediately announces an actual fight, explaining they'll be paired for one-on-one duels using wooden swords and support magic. Charlotte deduces that magic is likely allowed to balance the physical strength differences between students. Professor Nigel smiles, announcing the start of the first match. A dark-haired student with his hair tied back points at another boy and declares, "You're up." Professor Nigel then selects Charlotte as the opponent, leaving her to wonder in panic why she was chosen. Grasping the wooden sword, she worries about her opponent. Her opponent is Daniel Evan Collins, who boasts he'll win in one strike. Charlotte believes a complete novice like her has no chance. As the professor orders them to take their stances, Charlotte nervously grips the sword, admitting she's never even held one before. She glances over, noticing that Daniel is smirking at her. Begin! The match starts, and Daniel charges with surprising speed without using magic, catching Charlotte completely off guard. Thinking fast, she casts Fly to leap into the air and evade his attack. What? Using his forward momentum, she steps on his head to vault over him, leaving him stunned. Gwa? Landing behind him, Charlotte uses boost magic to enhance her body and closes the distance for a counterattack, following her plan perfectly. She swings her sword hard, striking Daniel, who underestimated her. She declares her victory, hoping she didn't hit him too hard. Clap, clap, clap. Professor Nigel applauds, calling her performance impressive. Confused, Charlotte quickly insists that she just won by pure luck. Grayson watches her exchange with a thoughtful expression. Professor Nigel orders the defeated Daniel to run 50 laps around the field, much to Charlotte's shock. On the ground, Daniel glares with fierce determination. The story is marked to be continued, with promotions for the website. The scene shifts to after school, showing the academy building under a clear sky. Now in a more casual uniform, Charlotte happily calls out to Prince Grayson. Grayson turns and apologizes, asking if she had been waiting for him. Using a magic circle to float leisurely in the air, Charlotte smiles and says she hasn't been waiting long at all. Grayson addresses Lady Charlotte, who remains floating on her magic circle. Startled, Charlotte quickly decides she should put away her magic. She uses a spell called Open the Gate to store her book in a portal, but Grayson questions if she plans to get down, leaving her flustered. She insists it's not because she doesn't want to walk, but Grayson bluntly concludes that's exactly what it means. He allows it, stating that as long as her floating doesn't interfere with their patrols, it's fine. Relieved, Charlotte reflects on how exhausting combat class was, complaining that just 2 laps completely wiped her out. Grayson turns to her and asks if she's capable of using spatial storage magic. He mentally notes that spatial storage is a rare, high mana cost magic, and he wonders about the floating blazer spell she used earlier. Charlotte explains that she simply modified a transportation spell her family frequently uses, which Grayson understands serves a similar purpose. Changing the subject, Grayson internally connects her reliance on magic to her low stamina, while Charlotte worries that she's annoyed him. He internally respects her creativity, but thinks she should at least clean her own room, admitting he wouldn't do it for her as he walks away, leaving her confused. Suddenly, Grayson stops and confronts Daniel Evan Collins, who has just arrived, asking what he wants. Daniel clarifies his business is not with the prince. Grayson protectively steps in front of Charlotte, questioning Daniel's reason for being in the botanical garden. Sensing hostility from Daniel, Grayson realizes that his business must be with Charlotte. Daniel confirms Grayson's suspicion, stating the person he's here for is that woman over there. Resigned, Charlotte realizes she knew this was coming, as Grayson steps forward to confront Daniel. Grayson questions what business the son of a prestigious family could have with a Viscount's daughter, but Daniel deflects. Enraged, Daniel shouts that a nobody Viscount's daughter defeated him using a cheap trick and demands she apologize immediately. He demands she publicly admit to winning with underhanded tactics, while Charlotte calmly thinks that this confrontation is exactly what she expected. Grayson coolly points out that magic was allowed by the instructor, and she broke no rules, but Daniel insists a sword duel should rely on swordsmanship alone. Grayson dismisses his argument as a personal opinion, stating that forcing his beliefs on others is wrong. Annoyed, Daniel tells Prince Grayson to stay out of the matter. Charlotte gently thanks Grayson for defending her, but insists she can handle this on her own. Turning to Daniel, she firmly states that she has no intention of apologizing or making excuses. With unwavering resolve, Charlotte declares that she too did nothing wrong. Grayson reflects on Charlotte's tendency to comply with others, like her sister, just to avoid trouble, and admits he was worried she would give in to Daniel's demands. He feared she would lose her dignity if she gave in, which prompted him to intervene. But now he wonders if he just meddled unnecessarily. Daniel glares at Charlotte with pure fury, calling her an insolent woman. Vowing to teach her a lesson, he unleashes a powerful flame spear spell. Shocked that he would use fire magic in the botanical garden, Charlotte issues Lord Daniel her first and final warning. She orders him to dispel his magic and surrender, promising to be generous if he complies, but he scoffs at the idea. As Daniel unleashes his attack, Charlotte calmly casts Surround Barrier, trapping the fiery projectiles within a magical prison. Grayson analyzes her brilliant tactic. She encased the fire in a vacuum to suffocate it, avoiding a dangerous steam explosion and minimizing collateral damage. He whispers that her move was impressive, and Charlotte, overhearing him, replies that she is honored. Daniel stares in disbelief, shocked that she so easily nullified his intermediate-level spell. He refuses to accept his defeat at the hands of a mere Viscount's daughter, convincing himself it must have been a trick. Determined to prove his superiority, Daniel begins chanting a new spell, Black Flame Purgatory, summoning shadows that consume darkness. Recognizing the long incantation for advanced magic, Grayson decides to act, drawing a golden magical gun as he realizes Daniel is serious. Realizing he must stop the spell's activation quickly, Grayson resolves to sever Daniel's wrist before he can complete the incantation. Casting Boost on himself, Grayson lunges forward with incredible speed to intercept Daniel. In a flash, Grayson grabs Daniel from behind and casts Teleport, just as Daniel's Death Flame spell activates, moving them both away from Charlotte. A cataclysmic explosion rocks the garden as Grayson stands ready with his sword, the story pausing on a cliffhanger. As the smoke billows, a narration explains that Death Flame is an advanced spell that summons uncontrollable black fire from another dimension. Grayson thinks that Daniel's inability to control the spell would have destroyed everything if Charlotte hadn't teleported him away. He can't see, but senses they are both still alive. As the smoke clears, Grayson spots Charlotte standing near Daniel's unconscious body and calls out to her in relief. He asks if she's alright, and a slightly dazed Charlotte responds that she thinks so. Grayson reveals he cast a barrier at the moment of the explosion, but admits he's not sure if he was fast enough. Charlotte starts to check on Lord Daniel, but Grayson tells her to forget him, stating he brought it on himself before asking about her injuries. The back of Grayson's uniform is torn and bloody, but he notes that Daniel only fainted from the magical recoil. In a flashback, Grayson clenches his fist, regretting that his brief hesitation to cut his classmate's hand is the reason Charlotte ended up getting hurt. Seeing Grayson completely unscathed, Charlotte thinks she should finish him off here before realizing she's just relieved the barrier held in time. Grayson stares at her in silent contemplation. Noticing his stare, Charlotte shyly and uncertainly thanks him. Grayson asks if she is truly okay, concerned about her injuries. Charlotte looks at him with a puzzled expression. He explains that he used magic to block the pain, so he completely forgot about his wound. Placing a hand on her chest, Charlotte casts a heal spell. She smiles brightly, apologizing for worrying him, and promising to wash the blazer before returning it. Grayson tells her there's no need, as he has plenty of spares, and internally wonders what kind of fearless woman she is. He thinks it's unheard of to forget a wound just because the pain is blocked, and admits to himself that he can't compete with her. Suddenly, two students, a red-haired boy and a short-haired boy, rush onto the scene, shouting about the loud noise and asking if everyone is all right. The scene shifts to the student council room, where the short-haired boy remembers he needs to tell Scarlet something. He informs a girl with long, blue-green hair, Scarlet, that there is great news about her sister. The brown-haired boy asks Scarlet if she didn't know about her sister's achievements. He relays what he heard from Professor Bianca, that Scarlet's sister is incredibly gifted at magic, as a flashback shows a smiling woman. Scarlet looks shocked, thinking it can't be true, while the boy confirms what Professor Bianca said. He continues, explaining that because of her display of talent, the younger students are starting to see her in a new light. Scarlet agrees, reflecting that her sister was just an ordinary girl until recently, and marveling at how much she's grown. Convinced her sister must have worked incredibly hard, Scarlet is told she has an amazing little sister. Walking down the girls' dormitory hallway, Scarlet furiously thinks, "You've got to be kidding me," believing her sister is a genuine genius who succeeds without effort. She lists Charlotte's perceived gifts, extraordinary memory, unmatched magical power, and an unnatural ability to learn, and worries what will happen if she gets serious. Scarlet recalls telling Charlotte to stay in her shadow to never be outshone and wonders why she's suddenly stepping into the light. Tap, tap, tap. Standing outside a door, Scarlet calls out, "Charlotte, it's me." Open the door. She insists she needs to talk, and Charlotte, startled, asks her to wait. As she enters, Scarlet notices a lavender scent in the room. She holds up the singed blazer she found, and Charlotte gasps in shock. Now seen wearing a pink robe, Charlotte asks her to wait a moment so she can change. Scarlet agrees, realizing her sister was in the middle of changing. After closing the door, Charlotte asks her sister why she's there. With a cold expression, Scarlet confronts Charlotte, accusing her of breaking their promise and asking why. Charlotte admits she did, explaining that she feared for her future if things continued as they were. Scarlet demands to know what she means by that. Confused by her sister's anger, Charlotte watches as Scarlet insists she can't possibly understand what she's done. Scarlet reminds her that noble ladies are expected to find a suitable husband at the academy, which Charlotte confirms is true for most. While getting dressed, Charlotte explains that when she first entered the academy, she was isolated because of the rumors Scarlet spread. She continues, stating that her sister not only made her seem ordinary, but also incompetent and selfish. Looking out the window, Charlotte asks who would ever want to marry someone treated like an outcast. Realization dawns on Scarlet's face. Charlotte says she understands and will stop the rumors, but her expression darkens. Scarlet then orders her sister to go back to being her shadow, but Charlotte firmly declares she has no intention of returning to that role. Enraged, Scarlet shouts that Charlotte has gotten ahead of herself and demands she apologize and submit immediately. Charlotte calmly responds, "Huh?" as the story is marked to be continued. The scene repeats Charlotte's disdainful, "Ha!" as Scarlet looks on. Charlotte says she listens silently to her sister's demands to apologize and submit, questioning if she realizes how unreasonable she sounds. She leans forward, coldly asking, "Do you think I'm your slave?" leaving Scarlet speechless. Scarlet thinks to herself that she's never heard Charlotte's voice sound so cold before. With her arms crossed, Charlotte points out that her sister has never once apologized to her. She accuses Scarlet of constantly forcing her own demands on her without ever admitting her own faults, causing Scarlet to gasp, unable to argue back. Realizing it's always felt natural not to apologize to Charlotte, Scarlet listens, as Charlotte declares she refuses to be bound by her any longer. Charlotte proclaims that she just wants to be free to live life her own way, which is why she won't hide her abilities anymore. With a peaceful smile and closed eyes, Charlotte resolves to live for herself from now on. Scarlet cries out in protest, clutching her uniform in distress. Turning away, Charlotte coldly tells Scarlet she crossed the line first and has no right to argue back as magic glows from her hand. A complex magic circle appears around Charlotte as she warns her sister that she will make her pay someday, leaving Scarlet stunned. As the purple magic circle glows brighter, Charlotte says, "Well then." Scarlet shields her eyes from a blinding flash of light, shouting as she casts a barrier spell. Still shielding her face from the intense light, Scarlet hears Charlotte's parting words, "Goodbye." The scene shifts to the exterior of the girls' dormitory, with a thought bubble questioning the commotion. Standing alone outside, Scarlet wonders in disbelief how her sister can now use teleportation magic. In a split panel, Charlotte appears calm and composed, while Scarlet shivers in shock and fear. Walking through the school, Charlotte reflects that between Lord Daniel's attack and her sister's visit, she barely got any sleep. She smiles to herself, Satisfied that at least she was finally able to speak her mind, Charlotte cheerfully wishes another student a good day. As they pass in the hall, with a confident and bright expression, Charlotte looks ahead to the new day. Charlotte greets Prince Grayson good morning, and he politely returns the sentiment. She hands him a bag, explaining it's the blazer he lent her yesterday, freshly washed. Grayson tells her she could have kept it, but Charlotte insists on returning borrowed items properly. Embarrassed, Charlotte demonstrates that his blazer was simply far too big for her anyway. Grayson chuckles and agrees with her, while she smiles beside him. Grayson's expression shifts as he recalls an important matter. He informs a concerned-looking Charlotte that Daniel's punishment has been decided. Charlotte notes that the decision was made quickly, and Grayson admits he was surprised as well. Grayson explains that Daniel's family was furious and won't interfere with his punishment, though he wasn't disowned. He reveals Daniel received a 1-month suspension, explaining it's meant to encourage rehabilitation given the minimal damage and it being a first offense. The red-haired boy adds that the student council president pushed for a harsher punishment but was ultimately overruled. Charlotte thoughtfully considers the news, realizing this means Daniel will not be expelled. Grayson offers to appeal the decision if Lady Charlotte feels the punishment is too lenient. Charlotte declines, stating his consideration is enough and that they should accept the Academy's decision. With a small bow, she thanks him once again for his help the previous day. As Charlotte walks away, Grayson thinks that while a formal complaint from him might have resulted in a harsher penalty, it wouldn't change Daniel's standing. Professor Cyrus, a man with green hair and glasses, startles Charlotte and her friends by wishing them good morning. The professor stops Charlotte, calling her by name as she turns to face him. A curious Charlotte turns around and asks Professor Cyrus what he needs. He informs her that the matter they discussed previously has been scheduled and asks if she is prepared. Her friends whisper nervously about her being summoned, but Charlotte calmly reassures them. With unwavering confidence, Charlotte declares that she is fully prepared and walks forward to face her next challenge.